So someone that I really admired in the EU did not win their seat, and that is Clare Daly. You know, Clare Daly, I think, has been one of the most vocal people for the anti-war movement. She's spoken out about the war in Ukraine. She's spoken out heavily against Israel, about their assault on the Palestinian people. But unfortunately, Clare Daly did not win her re-election, and we're going to go into some things that happened here, and then I want to take you back just a little bit to show you a sign, right? Like, so when I interviewed Clare Daly over a year ago, there was something she said in that interview that gave me pause, that made me think, well, maybe she might have difficulty winning re-election, right? So this was announced from The Guardian. So that's Clare Daly there. She's wearing the Free Assange t-shirt. She's pretty base. Like I always said, Clare was pretty on the money. Controversial Dublin MEP candidate Clare Daly loses seat despite celebrity backing. So Clare Daly, Ireland's outspoken and controversial Dublin MEP candidate, has lost her seat despite celebrity endorsements from Annie Lennox, Susan Sarandon, and other prominent figures. First of all, I was quite delighted to see that she was endorsed by Annie Lennox. Do you guys remember that band called the Eurythmics? Does anybody remember that? I don't know if everybody heard of this. It was the Eurythmics, and then Annie Lennox went solo and did her own thing. They had that song, Sweet Dreams Are Made of Us, whatever. Anyway, they were pretty based. I always thought Annie Lennox was pretty based. The left-wing candidate was eliminated on Tuesday after falling behind rivals in the Dublin constituency on the 17th count. During her stint at the European Parliament, Daly denounced Western militarism and was accused of giving succor to Vladimir Putin and other dictators, which she denied. She gained a big following on social media platforms and often appeared on state-leaning media in China and Russia. Notice how they frame that. I've always been honored to have been able to use this platform as a powerful voice for peace, anti-militarism, and neutrality, Daly posted on X. This result is not a rejection of those ideas. It is a testament to the success and reach of the work we've done that the establishment came out in such force to harm my chances of re-election. Daly has 424,000 followers on X and high-profile supporters in the arts. During the election campaign, Lennox, the Eurythmics singer, and Sarandon, the Thelma and Louise star, posted messages urging Irish voters to back the Independence for Change candidate. So yeah, unfortunately, Clare Daly did not win her re-election. It goes on to say here, as Daly left the Count Center in South Dublin, she rebuffed an RTE reporter who asked for an interview. And I'm actually going to show you that right about now. So here she was after she lost her seat. And so there was a reporter here for RTE News who did ask her how she felt about it. And I thought her answer was marvelous. Marvelous, darling.
Claire, would you have a word with us? How are you
feeling?
No
interest in talking to me for 5 years, so I've no interest in talking to you.
Claire, would you have a word with us? How are you feeling?
No interest in talking to me for 5 years, so I've no interest in talking to you.
Well put, right? Like they didn't want to talk to her before. Now all of a sudden that she's lost her seat, now they want to talk to her. So that is that. Ravina said, I like Annie solo better. She went heavy into blues and sound. She did. She did. Now I have like the Annie songs in my head, like Walking on Broken Glass and everything. But Clare Daly, she was here over a year ago. I'm not sure if Clare Daly is doing interviews anymore. Like I think during this time, she came onto my show. I think she also came on to Useful Idiots. I don't know if she's interested in doing interviews now that she is no longer a part of the EU. But I guess we can always see. There are two clips here that I want to show you from a previous interview with her that kind of made me wonder, you know, like, are they going to try to find ways to push her out as well? And then I want to show you what this means for European elections and what that could mean for the United States. Is there a shift happening in Europe? Let's go ahead and bring in this clip here. Yes. Why is it for someone like you, you don't seem to have that fear? to be vocal about this conflict and express exactly like how you feel. That one of the things you mentioned recently was that there needs to be some type of call for peace. We're not hearing that from our congressmen and women in the United States. Why is it that you're not afraid to be vocal about those things?
Well, I think there's two things about that question. I think your representatives aren't unique in that. I mean, we get this all the time. Like there are over 700 members in the European Parliament, for example, and in the first resolution on the war, there were 13 of us who voted against it. So we're kind of in a small minority here as well. So it'd be wrong to think that Europe is full of all these people standing up against the war. It certainly isn't. The political establishment in Europe is completely out of step with the hearts and minds of its citizens. And that's a huge political problem across both sides of the Atlantic, that the people in power are actually divorced from the ideas and the lived experience of most people. And that's for us a huge example in relation to the war. Like, I'm from Ireland, it's a very small country in Europe, but we get contacted by people every single day from other countries across Europe saying, why are you the only ones kind of saying this? So, I mean, that's a negative in some ways. I suppose why you could say one of the reasons why we are is that I'm not a member of a political party. And people think you have to be in a political party to have an ideology. But that's just utter nonsense. You know, I obviously have an ideology. I'm a left-wing person. I would say I'm a socialist. But I don't have to be in a party. I was in a party for years. I don't feel I need to be in a party to stand by them. And sometimes when people are in parties, the party is used to batter them into line. And they're afraid to stand against the party hierarchy because they're the people who they think get them elected. So they're serving the party rather than the people who the party is supposed to be serving. It puts that layer in there. But look, on the other side, I mean, the propaganda around this war and the intimidation of anti-war activists, of ordinary people, even of European business interests whose interests are not even being served by this war, but even European capitalism has been cowed into shutting up and not speaking out against this war. Such is the scale of the propaganda that's around it. I have never in my life seen anything like it, and I've been involved in politics for a very long time, and we have been subjected to the most appalling vitriol. And even now, people at home would say to us, oh my God, your reputation has been literally jumped on in the media, that we have been described as Putin puppets, as sort of almost been responsible for killing people in Ukraine, when we're the people who have the record of being anti-war, and the people given out to us are the people who championed and facilitated US imperialism in its wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. They're people who never say, let's arm the Palestinians against Israel, or say, let's go and give the people of Yemen some weapons to fight the Saudis. They never say that. But suddenly now, giving weapons to Ukraine is a way of helping the people of Ukraine. What utter nonsense. They are the people who are the cannon fodder of this war. And unfortunately, their leader Zelensky seems to be, I don't know, I'm seriously thinking now that this man is getting about a cent for every piece of ammunition that's thrown into that country, because it is beyond any military industrial complex's fanfare or marketplace. The amount of weapons that are going into that country, the amount of it that's ending up for sale on the black market in Europe, is just scandalous. The only people winning out of this are the military industrial complex, yet society and the media are the biggest people responsible in this, are battering people into submission, that people are afraid to talk about peace. Because if you do, you're going to be labeled as a Putin puppet, you're going to be accused of murdering people in Ukraine, and people are afraid, and people kind of say, whew, don't need that hassle. And we get it every single day from people in every European country saying, really like what you're saying, we agree, my work colleagues agree, but we're afraid to speak out because when we do, we just get kind of jumped on. And that's some scary spectacle. But that, it comes back to the media for sure. They are bought and paid for, and they are just puppets of the political establishment. And sadly, the European establishment has sold itself. As I say, I actually think, and I think many sections of European capitalism realizes that they too have shot themselves and have lost money, but they're afraid to speak up as well. It's mental, and they've spent the knee to US imperialism and to NATO. And as I
Yeah, it's very important what she said there. Notice how Claire called out the media. She called out the military industrial complex, like not just calling out the politicians, right? Like she's calling out the media because the media is the one that shapes the narrative. I want to remind everyone, this is before October 7th. So this is Claire speaking out against the war in Ukraine. She is one of the politicians who spoke out against the war in Ukraine, but is also speaking out against Israel's assault in Gaza. And not everybody has been that way. So one of the things that I had wondered, especially during that time, was how is it that people like politicians like her and Mick in the EU, how is it that they're not afraid, that they're able to be, you know, those anti-war voices there? Well, she actually responded to that as well. I want to get to that piece here. And it was actually from a question from MJ Anti-Imperialist Party. Clare Daly, why are you and Mick the only non-war voices in the EU? Great representation from Ireland.
Yeah, and I mean, actually, the Irish media would tell you that we're actually an embarrassment and a disgrace, and we have ashamed our country. That's the message in the Irish media. But actually, as your callers thing is totally, we get that all the time from people.
So it was that part right there where she said to the Irish media, her and Mick were considered to be embarrassing and a disgrace. It was that part there that made me wonder, is she going to have a hard time winning re-election? Because the reality is, it's a lot harder to win if the media is against you. It's a lot harder to win if the media either ignores you, they pretend like you do not exist, or they don't ignore you, but they spend all their time like smearing you. If you don't have the media on your side, it can be very difficult to win, even if you are already in office. We'll go on a little bit more here.
All across Europe. We're not the only ones, but I suppose we've been the most vocal. Why is that? Well, I suppose the short answer is that in about 10 of the 27 European countries, less than 30% of people vote. So the people who are in these chambers are very unrepresentative of the electorate. And there's a big gulf between the people and the institutions here. It's a big bubble. It's a corporate, imprisoned by corporate lobbying. But actually the people have little control over it because we've an unelected commission and the council and all the rest. But yeah, the others could do more, but I think most of them are afraid and they're constrained by their political parties. But it has changed a bit. We've noticed from the first motion where there were maybe 13 people against it, in the latter motions between, you know, abstentions and people voting against, it might have gone up to maybe nearer to 100 out of 700. So people are getting a bit more confident and people are asking a bit more questions. So sadly, it's the lived experience of the horror of the war that's making them change their mind. But hopefully there'll be a few people who learn a bit quicker, because we need to bring an end to this slaughter for sure. Yeah, it was really great to talk to Claire. I'll try to reach out again, assuming she still has that access to that email address, at least for like a month or so. I'll try to reach back out to her again to bring her back on. And I'm so glad I went away from the blonde dye, because good knows. Yeah, that was when Sabby went a little too blonde. But yeah, Clare Daly is a real one, guys. Like a real one. And Clare Daly is, I know we just talked about AOC, but Clare Daly is what I wanted AOC to be. You know, that's what I thought I was going to get. You know, it's like you have this expectation, you think you're going to get something, and instead you end up with something else. Like, I thought that is what I was getting when I supported AOC. Yeah. I said the same thing with Shama Sawant. Like, I thought I was getting like a Shama Sawant when I supported AOC. So it made me wonder with Clare Daly losing, and it brought my attention to what is happening with a right-wing surge that's happening in the EU Parliament. And I'm wondering if this has something to do with it. Is, you know, there a change happening here in Europe? Are people moving further to the right? Now, this happened recently. The right-wing surge in EU Parliament could have implications for Europe and beyond. And I just want to highlight this top paragraph here.
Populist far-right parties could have a bigger hand in European policymaking over the next 5 years after initial results from the EU election on Sunday suggested the parliamentarian landscape is being redrawn. So that right there, it made me wonder. Gains for the Nationalist Identity and Democracy Party, ID, and losses for the Green/European Free Alliance could leave centrist parties dependent on the right for key votes in the 720-seat European Parliament. So currently there is this right-wing shift that is happening in the EU Parliament, where they have won these seats, and that makes me wonder, is that part of the reason why maybe Clare didn't win? There's a shift. There's something changing there in Europe. And what does that mean for our politics here in the United States? Because typically we go hand in hand. So if there is an increase in right-wing populism in Europe, I would be silly to not assume that there may be an increase of that here happening in the United States. So we'll have to see what happens. But Clare Daly will definitely be missed. I hope I don't know what she has planned. I'll reach out and try to find out, but I hope that is not the last that we hear of her. Maybe she'll start a podcast or something like that. I don't know, but we'll see. Queer Black Socialista, walking on broken glass. Do, 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 do. See, now we have Annie Lennox songs in our head. Conspiriality. Clare Daly, like Cynthia McKinney, will be remembered for a long time for being a real one. I agree with you. Thank you, David. Reach out to Clare because she has plans after losing her seat. She's not done by a long shot. Her and Mick are my faves, and being Irish is a bonus. Thank you so much for that. Cup of Joy. Clare should team up with George Galloway. That would be interesting. Thank you for the super sticker, One Maggot Brain. That's an interesting name. Thank you, Jay Tolberts. Clare Daly's loss was like a punch to the gut. I feel despondent since she's one of the few who used her political power for peace and good, and her platform was silence. I agree with you there, 100. Antoine says Clare was in the Irish Parliament before. She should run again. I hear you. And the Oracle says AOC is tissue paper compared to Clare Daly being wood. Thank you so much for that. Sweet dreams are made of these. See, it's stuck there now. Some of them want to use you.